inspiring interviews, provocative people. Get ready. Get bold today with your Emmy-winning host, LeGrand Green.
This is the right place, this is the right time. Out with the heartaches and with the clear minds.
I'm LeGrand Green, and this is Bold. Today's subject is about loving outside the box, and our topic is something that is very new to a lot of people. The concept, the ins and outs, it's polyamory. What the hell is it? What does it mean? How do you do it? We're going to get into all of that today with Dawn Davidson, and she's the author of a wonderful new book called Kissable Agreements and Other Secrets to Negotiating in a Polyamorous Partnership. She's a relationship facilitator and a life catalyst that you can find at loveoutsidethebox.com. Please welcome Dawn to Bold. Dawn, how are you?
Hi, LeGrand. I'm so glad to be here today. Thanks.
We're here, we're fully plugged in, we're connected, and we're going to dive right into this because Bold is about exploring expanding our consciousness, expanding what we think of in regards to our love, our intimacy, our relationships, and this issue is really a hot subject right now because I know OkCupid just added a polyamory heart per, that's a pop culture thing that to their site. There's a news story I just read recently about this woman who actually married two African princes, and they decided to work it all out for the three of them to be in this relationship where it's all open, and people are like, oh my God, how are they doing this? But this is making news. So in polyamory, as far as we're getting into a more accepting, multicultural, multisexual, multi-partner understanding of how we can show up in the world. And this word, polyamory, would love for you to break that down for us. What does it mean?
So polyamory is a fairly recently coined word in the early 90s, made up of two parts, poly, which means multiple, and amory, which means love. And the actual definition of polyamory that I usually use is something like the practice or interest in having multiple relationships that are open and honest with the full knowledge and participation of everyone involved.
Full knowledge and participation, and that's scary for people because we are used to hearing about what you call open relationships, where you and your partner agree to have usually a sexual dalliance or some partnership or something outside of the two of you. People are familiar with that, or we have been confusing or perhaps the issue of what sex is, because a lot of people think this is about just sex, and you're saying no, it's about much more than that.
Yeah, it's true. There's a great overlap with open relationships, with swinging, with a number of other kinds of alternative relationship styles, as people sometimes phrase it. In particular, when people look at, say, swinging versus polyamory, swingers sometimes characterize swinging as recreational sex, whereas polyamorous people tend to focus on the relationship part. Remember, it's about multiple loves, not multiple sex partners.
Right, and I just got that a lot of people who are swingers would steer clear of polyamory like it was like poison, because their definition of what they're comfortable with is something different than this being fully available and being fully honest and open about your heart. Ooh, scary stuff.
Yeah, that intimacy really scares people. That's what I find, is this sense of being open with your heart is really frightening to a lot of people.
Now, this isn't a recent phenomenon, but this is the term is more recent. And what has been your experience in meeting people who are more open about it now, or are people just more likely to actually, like they used to use for the gay lexicon, to come out about it now? What's going on?
Yes, there's been a huge shift in the last 15 years or so. I've actually been practicing as a coach and a counselor since the late 90s, and I can tell you that the landscape is completely different than it was at that point. The word and the practice are becoming more and more well-known. People are really starting to understand that it's available as an ethical option for relationships. I recently was honored to be able to present at the first ever conference on non-monogamies and contemporary intimacies, which took place in Portugal this past fall. And that was so exciting. And one of the keynote speakers there, Meg John Barker, referred to the previous conference that had taken place in Germany 10 years ago and talked about the progress that we've made since then and all the new ways of relating that we're starting to talk about now. And just, it's been a huge explosion. There's been, something like 50 or more books have appeared on the scene with polyamory as their focus since 10 years ago.
And I think that's, as you said very early on, that taking this out of the sexual arena, because I think a lot of this was polyamory was dumped into the area of, I would guess, fetish or kink or whatnot, and was not explored as a relationship option.
Right. Yes. A lot of people really do focus on that sexual side of things, and while sex is a part of relationships, I like to say that sex is no more, polyamory is no more about sex than is monogamy.
Let's break that down, because you're talking about monogamous does not mean simply sexual.
Monogamy isn't all about sex.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
But polyamory isn't all about sex.
But we seem to have made it. I mean, I remember Dan Savage, who's the big relationship columnist and advocate, and Dan has been talking about this for years about not monogamy, but monogamish.
Monogamous. Yeah, I love the term monogamous.
But you're monogamish. So, we have our things, but that is basically, and that what came out of the gay community, but it can apply to any sexuality. But basically, that is still talking about sex.
Yep, often.
Yeah.
And, polyamory, when you get right down to it, the core of it is about love. It's about loving relationships. It's about, romantic or emotional intimacy. And sex is a part of that. Sex is a part of our adult lives. It's a part of most people's idea of what is considered a romantic or loving relationship as an adult. Not everyone. That was one of the things I learned at the conference in Portugal was about the asexual and aromantic communities.
Oh, yes. I've done shows about that, asexuality. That's a whole other
Very
thing.
Interesting. Very interesting. But, of course, you can be asexual and still be polyamorous.
That's true.
Yep.
And you could be a swinger and not polyamorous. I mean, you can be many different things.
Exactly.
So,
or you can be a swinger and be polyamorous.
Exactly. You can be all these different things.
Poly-swinger combinations.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's break this down for our listeners here. So, when we're talking about polyamory, have you found that there's a certain type of person that's more, attuned to that, or are you finding people coming to polyamory after being in a monogamous relationship? Or, I can imagine there's all kinds of permutations for this, but I'm just curious to know where the bulk is.
There's all kinds, and I'm not sure that there's any, quote, typical polyamorous person any more than
right.
monogamous person. I will say that there seem to be a couple of major paths into polyamory. One is the path that I myself followed, which is I started out with a monogamous mindset, but I didn't understand monogamy, and even in high school I started writing poetry about, why do I have to choose between these two guys? This doesn't make any sense. Especially not since I'm only a teenager.
Right,
what the heck
right.
is going on with this? And so while I tried to be monogamous, I didn't do it well. And I think there's a lot of people that come at it from that perspective. But they're sort of deeply, fundamentally polyamorous and open in the way they want to relate to people. And conversely, there's a lot of people who do come from the strongly monogamous perspective, and they're happily coupled up, sometimes for years, and then they decide to open their relationship for whatever reason. There may be a mismatch in sexual needs. There may be
people grow apart. Yeah, you grow in different ways.
People grow apart. They may need something from their partner that they can't get. Maybe there's illness or physical injury, and they're looking to make sure that everybody's needs are getting met, and they can't do it within the context of monogamy anymore. There are any number of reasons why people would come to polyamory, but that's the other major way to do it, is to come as a couple and open out.
And that makes sense. And I was asking that question as well, because I know I know I'm getting older when I start talking about generational things, but I know a lot of the younger people, they're more open to the concept from the get-go.
Yeah,
so that is also like, someone like me from a binary point of view, I can see where my hang-up is. It is around, because I've been conditioned to think about the sex part of it, and I'm fairly open sexually, and would not necessarily have a problem with my partner having a sexual encounter or sexual situation outside. But that's when you get to that heart, that love part. See, I don't want that, and that's really fear.
Right.
That's fear, and that's control. And that's not. You want whoever you're with, you want them to be happy and fulfilled.
Right.
However, that is going to scarily transpire.
Right. Exactly. In fact, that's such an important part about polyamory that polyamorists coined the term compersion, which means that state of being happy for your partner's happiness in another relationship.
And what was that word again, Dawn? Compersion?
Compersion. Compersion. Compersion.
Okay.
Yeah. And, it's such an important concept. And we as humans in the culture that we have, we're so win-lose oriented that it's hard for us to understand the desire to just be on an equal footing with everyone and allow our partners, all of our partners in whatever way, to have complete openness and freedom to pursue what makes them happy. And I talk about this a lot in the work that I do around jealousy, because jealousy is actually not a singular emotion. A lot of people think that it is, but it's not. It's a combination of things, most usually including some form of envy, which is I want that too, and also fear. So when we get into jealousy, it's usually more of a, I don't want you to have that because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And I actually have a list of, I think it's 41 different things that might cause us to feel anxious or concerned about our partner connecting with somebody else.
Well, and as we're talking here, like I said, I'm identifying what mine was. It would be fear, because I just saw it so clearly. It's like, it's okay for me to allow, whatever that is, you to have this partner,
right?
But to allow it to be more, that's fear, control on my end, something to look at. And what you're saying with the polyamorous relationship, which I also pick up very strongly, is you have to be very comfortable, and this is life anyway, with fluidity. Because things are always changing. We're the 3 or 4 or whatever the relationships you might be having, but whatever the agreement is today will surely change tomorrow or the next day. I mean, because it's fluidity. That's really uncomfortable for people.
It is. It's very uncomfortable. People like to have safety and stability, and they like to think that things are not going to change. And that's actually not true. Things change all the time. And this idea that we have that we can make a singular commitment to one partner for our entire lifetime, well, it does work for some people. I'm definitely not going to say that it doesn't. But the idea is that things will never change, and that's not true.
Definitely not true.
And polyamory is one way of viewing the inevitable change in relationship and saying, okay, how do we navigate this where we can connect with each other in a way that's authentic for us today, and then figure out how, if it changes tomorrow, we'll figure out what we need to do to continue to remain connected or not. That there are actually a number of cultures worldwide right now that practice various forms of multiple partner relationships. There's some Southeast Asian cultures that practice polyandry, multiple men, often brothers, marrying the same woman. And there are a number of other cultures, I can think of some in Africa who practice polygyny, so multiple women. It's what people often think of when they think of polygamy is the religious polygyny with the single man with the multiple women, and while that is it falls into the wider concept of multiple partners. It's generally not the same thing, because the polyamory movement is founded so strongly on egalitarianism and the right of everyone to have the relationships that fulfill them, that make them happy, and to have that be true no matter what your sexual orientation is, or what your gender is, whether it's male, female, or something non-binary, or whatever. Polyamory is a great place for people who feel like they don't fit inside the box of the heterosexual, heteronormative, mononormative stories.
Well, that's a perfect place to close, and we're going to have you back, Dawn, because this is a big subject, but I'm so happy we were able to shine a spotlight on it today. And for our bold listeners, we can find Dawn at loveoutsidethebox.com. Pick up her book. We get that online, Dawn?
Yes, you can get that. It's currently only available as a PDF download, but it is available that way for a mere $10, so you can pick that up, and it's on my website there, loveoutsidethebox.com.
Well, we love this conversation that was outside the box today, and that's totally what Bold is. So we thank Dawn Davidson for coming on the show today, and she'll be back. If you like what you've heard, join the conversation at getboldtoday.com. That's where you'll find lots of stories and features and profiles on subjects that expand our consciousness and open our hearts. We close as always. Remember, shift happens right where you are. Be the change and get bold today.
Inspiring interviews, provocative people. Get ready. Get bold today with your Emmy-winning host, LeGrand Green.
This is the right place, this is the right time. Out with the heart. heartaches and with the clear minds, we gotta.
I'm LeGrand Green, and this is Bold. Today's topic is about something that I'm really passionate about, and as I told my guest already, that I hope I get through this without crying, because this is about, to me, hell on earth and what we can do to change it. And we're talking about puppy mills. And we're talking today with Pam Horton and Tom Young, who you can find at avoiceforlittleolive.com, and that's little, L-I-L, olive.com. So please welcome Pam and Tom to Bold.
Hi, I'm Pam Horton, and I am the mother of Little Olive.
Yay!
And I also have, fabulous, and I also have 3 other little Italian Greyhound puppy mill survivors at home. I have Mildred, Hazel, and Agnes.
Wow. And Tom, you're the director of the movie.
The executive producer.
Director of the movie.
I'm working with a team of people on bringing Olive's story to a new film, and that's what if you visit the website, you'll see all the information there. And we're going to have the film basically in a format of a documentary because we want to tell the story, but we also want to educate people about what's going on out there. And you just touched on it, and we feel like through the story of Little Olive, we can educate people the best because we feel like people learn through stories.
How did you tell us a little brief story? What happened in the beginning? How did this all start?
Well, a friend of mine told me to go and look at a page where you could adopt puppy mill survivors. So I went to this page and I looked down through all of them, and the very, very last photo on the page was this little dog named Wendy. And she was 15 years old and really had looked like she'd been through the ringer. And I thought, well, God bless her, no one's gonna adopt a 15-year-old dog.
Right.
And so I called and said I was interested in adopting her when they were thrilled, and they brought her to my home. Now, I have had dogs my whole life. I've worked with rescuing the ex-racing greyhounds for years, and so I'm experienced with rescue animals, and but I was not at all prepared for a puppy mill survivor. They brought her in, and she was tiny. She weighed about 8 pounds when I got her, and she ran to the corner and hid. She had pretty much no hair. Her tongue was hanging out because she only had 2 teeth left. Her tail was broken so many times. It went in so many different directions, and her back legs, she waddled. They didn't bend. So it took me, I just kind of winged it with her. I sat down next to her, and for months I couldn't touch her, but I sat next to her, I put my hand out, and about 4 months into it, she came over to me one day and touched my hand with her nose, and so I'll cry. And it was like the most amazing, it was amazing. It was like she gave me everything that she could possibly give to me at that moment, and it was just love. I can't even describe what she meant to me and still does mean to me, and she was, to me, the most beautiful dog in the world, and I proudly began to take her out everywhere I go, and people would ask, obviously there was something wrong with her, what's wrong with her, and so it became evident to me that I could really educate people with this little pup. And so I thought, well, I'll do a Facebook page, and so I started it, and of course I wanted it to be like she was the one typing and running it. And and I figured, well, she had her tongue hanging out, so she would have a lisp. So she kind of made up her own words and her own little language, I guess, and it took off like wildfire. People started joining this page, and we have over 40,000 people now, and because of Olive, I then adopted Agnes, who has less physical issues, but she has PTSD issues. She will scream. She has panic attacks, and then from her we brought in Hazel, and same, she's very emotionally damaged from everything. And then after my little Olive passed away, which could possibly be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I came home and went on Facebook to let everyone know, and up popped a picture of this little dog that looked just like Olive. And I thought, well, is that Olive or is that not? And then turns out that it was a little dog who's been a puppy mill survivor as well, had been waiting 3 years for a home. And so we drove to Texas because I felt that Olive brought Millie to me. And so we drove to Texas and brought Millie home. So we're still going strong. I promised her that I would never stop speaking for those who have no voice. So I'm just going to keep it going. They can't shut me up.
Well, that's beautiful, Pam. But also, like what you said, that's what A Voice for Little Olive is all about. And I love how you had the presence of mind, as you say. You know, you knew no one was going to adopt this 15-year-old lost dog. You know, and I mean, anyone go and find these pictures if you don't know who Little Olive is, and you see these pictures, heartbreaking. And as you were mentioning about the tail, I mean, I was watching the video, and I had to actually stop it for about 15. I had to stop and cry a little bit because I was like, oh, my God, who treats animals like that? And that goes right back to the issue of what these puppy mills are doing.
Yes. They're huge. They're all over. And many people think that when you start talking about them that we're not really telling the truth. They don't believe it. But there's over 10,000 of them in the United States, and 99% of the dogs that you see in puppy stores or pet stores are from puppy mills. And so what we're trying to do is educate people, don't buy the dogs in the pet stores. We need to break that cycle of them making so much money, and the dog that you're going to get is most likely going to have all sorts of illnesses because, the breeding's so terrible, and really you're just condemning the mom and dad to never get out. They are in a cage 24/7. The day that Olive was rescued in Missouri, it was 9 degrees, and they had found, sadly, they found some frozen mamas in there that had babies that were actually frozen while they were nursing. And so they are just not cared for in any way, shape, or form. So when I met with Pete and Tom, and they were like, let's do a film so that we can educate so many people, I was like, we have to do it. It just has to be done. And sadly, Little Olive passed before we finished. But we're going to keep going.
As you say in the title of the movie, The Voice for Little Olive, that a voice rings forward forever. Beyond the physical presence. So the fact that Little Olive is not here anymore is sad, but it's joyous that this message is getting out, that we have to stop the puppy mills. We have to stop the cycle of this. How we treat our animals is how we treat ourselves. And this is something that's glaring that we can actually change.
Exactly.
It is. It's so true. I want to just jump in real quick and say that this story is so much a bigger indicator of so many things in our lives and in our society. For one thing, dogs are our best friends and our pets and companions because over thousands of years humans bred dogs to be that way. And so here we have this loyal animal that loves humans, and we love them back. And through the story of Little Olive, people can start to realize, well, hey, if I go to a store in the mall and buy a puppy there, or if I buy a puppy online and I don't know where it's coming from, then I'm continuing to support this commerce that's just not good. Not good for the animals, not good for us as a society. Mm-hmm. And so there's been lots of other things out there that have attempted to tell this story, but they tend to focus more on the negative side and on the shock value. Little Olive came to Pam to say, look, it's okay. I still love you. Yeah. I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm an old dog, but I'm still alive, and I'm going to be here with you. And in doing that, it shows you the resilience of dogs in their nature.
What has been the biggest revelation in working on the project, or the most surprising thing that you've discovered?
The most surprising thing I've discovered, I guess, is two things. One, how many people didn't know about puppy mills. And then the other thing is the amount of love that these little, I don't like to say broken, but they kind of are, these little broken souls, just, they still want to love. It's just in them to want to be near you as close as they can get. And so through this film, I've talked to so many people that have little dogs like this, and they'll say, how long does it take? And I'm like, I think that it could very well be that they never act like a dog that maybe you had adopted as a puppy. My girls will never act that way. But I tell people that what they're giving you at that moment, okay, so I'll cry, at that moment is everything they have in their soul to give you. And if they can do that after the way that they lived, then I said this about Olive, and I mean about all of them, they are just perfect little souls. They're perfect. And so I just want everyone to know so that we can fix this. That just shouldn't be. It's wrong. Ugh.
It's a great question, and it's very emotional for us because
I understand.
We've seen the loyalty of the followers of Little Olive's followers on Facebook, the 40,000 plus people. These are folks that in some ways have had the enlightenment. You know what I'm saying? They've become made aware of this situation. But I think the numbers are staggering. About half of the U.S. population owns a pet. Mm-hmm. And so many of us are so attached to our loving dogs. And I think that this is just an extension of that. Mm-hmm. And these people have experienced, that there's this dark underside to dog commerce and puppy mills and pet stores and all that. And if we really feel the love for our pets like we do, this is an area where we have to stand up and say enough is enough. Dogs are not livestock, right? They're not plants. They're not to be harvested like a plant is harvested, right? They're living, breathing things that are part of human culture and a side effect of human culture because they've been bred over years to be our companions.
Well, it's important, as you were saying, Tom and Pam, because I connect this to the larger issue as well. So what we talk about here on Bold is, I do profiles and interviews of celebrities and all kinds of people, book authors, bloggers, but the basic piece of it is love and unconditional love, and it starts with ourselves so we can share that. And what the story of Little Olive is doing to me is a wonderful pastiche of emotions, as you were saying earlier. You're not trying to tell the story from a negative, fear-based place. You're trying to tell it from a place of love. And when you do that, you expose the darkness.
Right. That's exactly it. I mean, I want to say thank you to all the I call them friends on our Facebook page, because they've been there the whole time, and they loved me through different issues that she had. They loved me through getting more dogs, and they loved me through Olive's passing, which was oh gosh, I don't even know. Well,
it's almost like your Facebook page is a TV show for them.
Yeah.
They wait for the next TV episode to come out. They're really
amazing.
Interesting.
They're amazing followers, and they truly love my girls, which is just amazing. And I told them, I think on the post when I wrote that Olive passed away at the end of it, I said that I thanked them all for loving her, because she was amazing and she deserved it.
She did, and the unconditional love that you mentioned was such a big part of this, because that's what we have for our pets is unconditional love. Pets don't have an agenda.
No, they don't.
They just want to do what they do. They want to play, and they want to eat and do what they do.
Yep.
And we also feel like we want to do this documentary film because we feel that documentary films are a way to educate people like no other medium can do.
Yeah.
And that's happened before. There's several other documentary films that have changed public awareness and made major changes. Super Size Me is one that comes to mind.
Right.
About McDonald's. And there's been many. So that's why we want to make this film. I mean, that's the ultimate motive behind this, is to reach a wider audience, build awareness, and use the story to educate, and a positive, uplifting story about unconditional love. So it's really, really good point.
You know, it started horrible, and she was in a puppy mill for 12 and a half years, and she passed away at almost 18 years old, and I think that Olive's story was a success story in the end, and that's what we want to try to let people know. Yeah.
Absolutely success story. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I thought she was very beautiful. I used to tell everybody, she's beautiful, and people, when they first looked at her, were like, well, I said, well, give her a minute. You want to hold her? And I would put her in people's arms, and they would cry. And they're like, oh, why am I crying? I'm like, well, you just were olived. That's what I call it. I said, I don't know how to tell you.
I love that.
Yeah, they were. Olived a lot of people. People came from the United Kingdom to meet her, from Canada, from all over the States, and they would come to the house, and I would put her in their arms, and she just, you were olived. I don't know how to say it. She just had a way about her that was forgiving and loving, yet you could easily see the pain and horror that was her past, but she went past it. She was as happy as could be.
And whose story continues with Angel Olive, which we
people were very upset that they thought she wasn't going to be on the page anymore. I'm like, well, if you knew Olive will always make her voice known. So she comes down as Angel Olive now.
Oh, I love that.
She used to welcome her at the
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, in our final minutes here, where can we find you exactly? How can we contribute to the Indiegogo campaign? What can we do? Every listener out there, if this is the first time you're hearing about Little Olive, you go to that webpage.
Yes, thanks so much. If you go to voicefforlittleolive.com, you'll see all the links there to our Facebook page and our Indiegogo campaign, where we're raising money right now. This is a grassroots movement. We're not funded by a major movie studio. We decided to start this as a grassroots movement and not have to rely on a corporation to back us or support us. So yes, tell your friends, visit the webpage. If you can support, great. If you can't support, share and follow us, because that means the world to us as well. And then once the funds are raised and in place, we'll start shooting the film. And the plan is to start shooting this summer, and then hopefully by the end of the year, the film will be released. And if you're following us, you'll get all the details on how to see it and how to view it and where it will premiere and all of that.
Yes.
So keep on top of this, folks. This is where you can go. We're talking to Pam Horton and Tom Young, and they're behind the wonderful movie project, A Voice for Little Olive. I want to close with a quote. It's about what we've been talking about, the theme of this podcast, which is unconditional love. And this quote says, love is an unconditional commitment to an imperfect person, idea, or condition. To love somebody isn't just a strong feeling. It is a decision. Remember, shift happens right where you are. Be the change and get bold today.
Inspiring interviews, provocative people. Get ready. Get bold today with your Emmy-winning host, LeGrand Green.
I'm LeGrand Green, and this is Bold. And we have a guest today who's returning to us, one of our most popular guests, Mr. Shawn Stevenson of Model Health. Shawn's going to talk about the connection between sleep and nutrition, and actually give us some really high-tech solutions for how to sleep smarter every night. Welcome, Shawn, to Bold again.
I am so glad to be back, man. I appreciate it so much.
I think this whole issue of sleep is, so many Americans are sleep deprived, most of us are,
and we never look at that as a key ingredient of health. So I'm just going to let you roll with that.
Yeah, you can see I'm already pumped up. I'm fired up to talk about it, because the reality is this, is that our genes, so our DNA, what we're made of, it expects certain things of us. And if we don't follow these things, we get pain, and all the pain is really just a biochemical feedback to get us to change, so the low energy, the headaches, the constipation, the extra weight around our waist in particular, the diabetes, the cancer, the heart disease, all these things can be lumped together as these are signals from a body that's crying out for attention. It's crying out and giving you basically an alarm and a warning sign and just asking you to change. But what we do in our modern world today is we just hit the snooze button on the alarm, so it's just kind of going on, right, underneath the surface, and it never really gets addressed. And some of the ways that we hit the snooze button are we take a pharmaceutical drug to mask the symptom, not cure the underlying cause of the disease or the feedback that our body's giving us, but it'll just mask the symptom. So the alarm doesn't sound as loud anymore, right? And so we can live with that. But is that really living is the question that I want to ask everybody. And so what we're really about is focusing in on and addressing the underlying cause of these symptoms and giving our body and our DNA at the cellular level an opportunity to be the best, most beautiful, healthy, vital, and energetic version of ourselves. And everybody has that capacity. If you're able to sit up right now and listen to this, you are alive. You're in an amazing body that has the capacity for so much. But we just need to start to abide by the laws of the body. Now, there are many laws in our society. Many of them, it's not so bad to break them. It's all right to break the rules sometimes. But the laws of the body, that's another story. This is like written in our, it's written in our DNA. It's written in our cellular makeup. It's written in how we're created. And again, this is just for the purpose of guiding us to make great decisions about what we need to do for our health. So, as you mentioned, last time we talked about some of the things surrounding nutrition and right movement, and what that really boils down to is, you are what you eat, and you are what you ate. So paying attention to the food qualities you bring in, because you're literally creating your own personal sculpture or personal art piece with every bite
based on what you're taking in. Yeah, I love when you said that, because that really registered with me. It's like, if you really are what you eat, and if people could really see what you're eating on the outside, there'd be a lot of changes actually what people were eating.
Oh, precisely, man. I just thought about I don't know if you ever seen this movie. When I was a kid, it was called Spaceballs.
Yes.
Did you see that movie?
Mm-hmm.
And it was Pizza the Hut, not Jabba the Hutt, Pizza the Hut. He's this giant pizza goo monster, right? And so if we could see that, obviously we'd change the way of our attraction, for each other. But we can't. And again, a lot of this stuff is going on internally, and we have that show up as symptoms of disease, be it from cancer all the way down to just simple acne. And again, it's just our body's feedback that we need to change. And so, so we touched on that, but here's the huge component that's been left out of the story, and something that our genes expect us to do is to rest and recover.
Right.
Science still is not clear on why we need to do this, because of the simple fact that it's, we've evolved, we've got this biological evolution behind us, and this is not a very good biological advantage if we have to go to sleep, because you're the most vulnerable you can possibly be in that state. Anything and everything can happen to you while you're asleep, and you wouldn't even know.
But
right?
is there any animal that doesn't sleep, though? I mean, you think about it. I mean, isn't that part of the natural order of things? Rest, like the seasons, we have to follow the natural order.
There are, if we get into like talking about some amphibians, some fish that quote sleep with their eyes open. But, even these things that get studied, there's always this kind of off program, and it's for the body to recalibrate itself. And so for human beings, it's like, if this is not necessary, why didn't we evolve out of it? It's because it's very, very necessary. And it's because also the human unit requires significant amount more sleep than a lot of other mammals. And this is because of our amazing human brain. You know, we have this prefrontal cortex, and while you're asleep, and here's just a huge takeaway for everybody, there's an interesting process that goes on while you're asleep. It's called memory processing. And this is where your short-term memories get converted into long-term memories. Right? So this is a time when right now the things that people are learning, it might sound great. It might sound like, yeah, I want to take action on that. But it doesn't really become a part of who you are until your body and your brain can file that away in your REM sleep. In particular, is part of the component where it happens. And REM sleep, for everybody, just, you know, they probably heard of that before. They're like, what is it? That means rapid eye movement sleep. This is essentially when you're dreaming, okay? And so a lot of the research behind dreams, and a lot of people are probably interested in that, it's really your body, your brain is sorting out information, right? It's kind of moving up on the screen to process data, all right? And it's really, really powerful, but again, there's still a lot of work to be understood there. Where the real science is at and where the real understanding is at is in something called non-REM sleep. Okay, so non-REM sleep. And this is the most powerful, deep, anabolic stage of sleep, or anabolic stage of the human body is in. And here's the secret, is that anabolic means the building up of, right? And catabolic means breaking down. Just you being awake is catabolic, right? No matter what's going on, if you're just sitting there watching television, your body's breaking down more rapidly. You only get that prize, you get that recovery, you get that change while you're asleep. You don't change your body in the gym. That's another big misconception. When you go into the gym, you're in better shape.
Repeat that then. Let's repeat that again. I think people are weird. We don't change our bodies. It's helpful, but we don't change our bodies in the gym. It changes when we sleep.
Yes.
Okay.
When you and I, we walk into the gym, doors, like, yeah, we're about to get in shape today. We're actually in better shape when we're standing at the door than when we finish that workout, right? If I was to take you in and get your blood work done and a hormone panel done after your workout, your blood glucose would be high. You might be, you'd for sure have your inflammatory biomarkers would probably be pretty off the charts. Stress hormones are going to be elevated. And it's possible that we can get you diagnosed with a disease of some sort. But if we were to test you even a few hours later, everything would kind of be sorted out. So it's not that you were sick, it's that you just had an intense workout. And what it's called is a hormetic stressor. Okay, a hormetic stressor. And so a hormetic stressor is something that is potentially very, very good for you if you do the second part, which is to recover from the stress. Okay? So your body doesn't change while you're working out. You're actually breaking your body down. Your body changes while you're asleep, and in particular while you're in deep non-REM sleep. So all the exercise you're doing, trying to change your body, the good nutrition you're trying to eat, your body assimilates and changes and builds that better you. And this is why it's called beauty sleep, man. Beauty sleep. This is when it happens. And so to kind of ignore this, or to push the snooze button on sleep, for example, a lot of people can kind of, quote, get away with that while they're younger. And this is because they've got a huge hormonal advantage. But what they don't know is that they're accelerating their aging process. Because truly, your youth and your youth hormone and your youth capacity and beauty and energy should be lasting far past 25 years old, 30 years old, 35, 40 years old. So there was a study done by Rensselaer Polytechnic. And what they showed was that 2 hours of iPad use before bed was enough to dramatically suppress the secretion of melatonin.
Really? That's surprising to me.
And so here's the deal with that, is that melatonin, it's not the sleep hormone as a lot of people think, it's the get good sleep hormone. That hormone enables you to not just pass out and go to sleep, but it enables you to get into the most deep anabolic stage of sleep that we've been talking about, that non-REM sleep. That's why you need melatonin. So you can get off your device and go to sleep, but then you're going to wake up tired because you didn't actually get into that deep anabolic stage of sleep as much and as often and as deeply as you really need it. And so these are the little secrets and little hacks that we have here. Is like, number one, so let me share some tips with everybody, if that's okay.
Absolutely. We love practical tips on Bold.
Okay, so number one, I'm going to give you the best thing, and then I'm going to give you the hack. The best thing is to have a screen curfew. Okay, give yourself a screen curfew. And according to the research, the minimum amount of time to help your body to enable it to secrete more melatonin before you go to sleep is 90 minutes. All right, so 90 minutes. So if you plan on going to bed at, say, 10:30, so you need to be off of your devices at, say, 9 o'clock. And I just talked about this the other day. I just did this talk for a corporate bank organization. And it was a fun group. We had a great time. And we got to this point where we were talking about the screen curfew. And I asked, and everybody was engaged, really interactive before this moment. And I asked them, I said, okay, guys, so 90 minutes before you go to sleep, what can you do in that time instead of being on your technology devices? And everybody started looking around the room at each other as if they were like deer caught in headlights, like they had no idea, right? And this is the state of our society, you know, and I'm looking at these grown people who, they're just like, I don't know what to do. 90 minutes, what am I? And then, and here's the thing, so maybe 30 seconds went by, and people kind of giggling or whatever, and we look over, I look over to the left, and there's a lady who shyly puts her hand up, and she was like, read a book? And I'm like, yes, you can read a book. Exactly, you know, and so it was like this novel experience, you know, it's kind of pun intended there, but that somebody would just say, I can actually read a book. I can just get off of my device and read a book. And then
another somebody, yes.
The thing, the other side of the room, another brave woman put her hand up. She was like, talk to your spouse? And it was not a confident answer. It still had a question mark behind it, right? And I was like, yes, talk to your spouse, talk to somebody you love, talk to somebody who you care about, find out what's going on with them, what their challenges were today, what their successes were, and they can do the same for you. You know, talk about what you're grateful for today. Just have a conversation with a real human being. What a concept, right? And so, you know, everybody's kind of laughing. We got everybody more engaged and kind of starting to go through their minds and think of the things that they can do. And so that time could be really, really valuable to build not only your health, but also to cultivate your relationships. And your relationships are probably the biggest impact on your health and success in your life.
Right.
You know,
so this is fascinating. So obviously we want to decrease our usage of our computers before any screens before bed, keep into the natural order of things, communicate with each other. Sean, what about the actual time people should be sleeping? I mean, is that really true? You need 8 hours of sleep, or is it varies from person to person? I mean, what are those parameters about?
That's a great question. And at no point in my book, not at any point did I say you need to get, you know, blank hours of sleep. You need to get 8 hours or 9 hours or 7. I never at one time say that because of what you just said. There is no cookie cutter answer to that. You need as much sleep as you need. You know, and it's really about getting more connected to your body because your body will give you that feedback. And again, it's a difference between going to sleep and actually getting rejuvenated. You know, so we want to stack conditions in our favor to get the most rejuvenative anabolic sleep that we can, and that's really what this is all about. So just to give you some parameters there, another little hack that I share in the book is that our sleep cycles, if you're doing the things that have really great sleep surrounding you, a sleep cycle is about 90 minutes, okay? So that's going from the non-REM sleep and the REM sleep, and also there's some other stages, but I like to keep it really simple with just these two. But it'll last about 90 minutes. So getting 4 cycles of 90 minutes, that's going to be 6 hours of sleep. So I would implore people to probably have that to be the minimum. And this is what the research indicates is that four of those cycles are really, really important and valuable. And then the next step up would be 7.5 hours and then 9 hours. So naturally, my body tends to enjoy, and I tend to wake up on my own after about 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep every single night. And that variance between 7 and 7.5 changes depending on what I did that day. So if I train, you know, if I go to the gym and really hit it hard, I tend to just sleep a little bit more. I'll sleep up until my alarm, which is rare because I generally wake up before. But I know chances are if I, you know, really put it on my body and my body needs to recover a little bit more, it'll just stay asleep a little bit longer. And that's okay. You know, so what I want to talk about more is a couple little quick things. I'll just throw this in here really quick. Some other things that we can do to get ourselves in that anabolic stage more frequently. Mm-hmm. One of those things And this is super simple. This is super low-hanging fruit here. There was a study done at Appalachian State University, and they split exercises up into 3 different groups. Group A exercised at 7 a.m., Group B exercised at 1 p.m., and Group C exercised at 7 p.m. What they discovered at the end of the study was that the morning exercisers, Group A, they spent up to 75% more time in deep sleep, the deep anabolic stages of sleep, 75% more time simply by exercising in the morning. All right? So here's the tagline is, exercise in the morning will help you sleep better at night. All right? That's the tagline. And really quickly to share it with everybody how it works is, and by the way, this does not mean you need to hit the gym in the morning. If you train, like I work out in the afternoon. Right. I work out in the afternoon myself. But in the morning, I'm going to do something that's kind of set my cortisol rhythm on track. So this could be a time when you do like a 20-minute power walk, or you do some rebounding on a mini trampoline, or you do some yoga. And what you're doing is you're working to get an elevated cortisol spike in the morning, which is normal. And I actually have a cortisol chart in my book. The elevated cortisol in the morning, and what that's going to do is help to make sure that it goes down in the evening. All right? And why this is important is that cortisol and melatonin are the opposite of each other. All right? So if cortisol is up, melatonin is ground floor. When cortisol goes down, melatonin automatically goes up. All right? So this is something that helps to set your circadian rhythm. And it's super easy, super low-hanging fruit, and one of those things that will help you to get more anabolic sleep.
Well, we want to thank you, Sean, for sharing all these tips with us about sleeping smarter. And you can find Sean obviously at the SeanStevensonModel.com. Get a copy of his book, Sleep Smarter. And what's coming up for you, Sean, in recent weeks?
Wow. Okay. I'm just really right now focused in and very, very passionate about doing my show. We just blew past 1 million downloads.
Yay!
I know, it's a celebration. You know, it's so powerful in medium, and just I'm so passionate about all of the people who I've been engaging with, and the followers of the show and the fans of the show who've been connecting with me and sharing it. And somebody just tagged me on a picture on Instagram. I'm super late to social media, and but I just got on Instagram recently, and somebody tagged me in a picture showing half of the picture was my book, the other half of the picture was a picture of her mother reading my book. And her mother's had these sleep issues for many, many years, and she just said, you know, she took the picture, and the tagline was like, "My mother can't put this book down." And it's just like, my God, that's why I do what I do. You know, that makes it all worth it. All of the effort and the time and the energy that goes into it. And so I'm really excited about that. I've got a bunch more speaking events to be traveling around to do, and that's really what's exciting coming up for me.
Well, we thank you, Sean, for coming on board again, and we want everyone to really eat smarter, think smarter, and obviously sleep smarter with Sean Stevenson. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
If you like what you heard, join the conversation at GetBoldToday.com. That's where you'll find people like Sean Stevenson and other everyday heroes and authors and speakers and celebrities who are here to share information with us that inspire us to live, laugh, and love out loud. Remember, shift happens right where you are. Be the change and get bold today.